Hello, I am so glad that you have chosen to join us today for this webinar that's going to address high quality pre-kindergarten components, specifically teacher to student ratios. My name is Tamala Olsby, and I am part of the Early Childhood Education Division here at TEA. This slide shows you what we plan to cover today. We will first start with an overview of the high quality pre-kindergarten components that are referenced in HB3. We will then spend most of our time in the component of teacher to student ratio. We'll look at some research. We'll figure out what is required within that component, and then we'll look at some frequently asked questions. We will then delve a little deeper in how could we even reach for higher quality within this component, and we will end our webinar time together looking at some resources and support that may help you. Let's briefly look at the high quality components that are referenced in HB3. Texas has been on a journey for quite some time to increase the quality of its public pre-kindergarten programs. The link between child outcomes and the quality level of the pre-kindergarten program is a well-researched subject. Let's look at this piece of research. Not all pre-kindergarten programs successfully support early learning. It is decidedly not the case that just any pre-K program operating under just any circumstance will provide young children with the inputs they need to produce, let alone sustain early developmental gains. That's what we're aiming for. We want our youngest students in Texas to attend a pre-kindergarten program of the highest quality. These are the high quality pre-kindergarten components that are referenced in HB3 and are a requirement of every public pre-kindergarten program within Texas, serving eligible 4-year-old students. You'll see their curriculum, student progress monitoring, teacher qualifications, teacher-student ratio, family engagement, program evaluation, data reporting. There are a lot of them. The focus of this webinar is specifically on teacher-student ratios. All of the information contained in this webinar can be found in at least one of the 3 sources listed on this slide, either in statute, in commissioner's rule, or actually within the revisions and legislation of HB3. So here we go. What are the requirements that focus on a pre-kindergarten teacher to student ratio? Before we look at the requirements, I believe we might want to ask, why are we looking at ratios as a component of high quality? Let's look at what this research says. Lower student-teacher ratios are associated with increased responsiveness by teachers, leading to a host of positive outcomes for young children, such as improved language skills, social emotional functioning, behavior, and play skills. Young children benefit from having access to teachers and paraprofessionals. So maintaining a good ratio for teachers to students is a sign of high quality in a pre-kindergarten program, and it is definitely linked to positive child outcomes. This slide shows you what is in statute and commissioner's rule regarding teacher-to-student ratios for pre-kindergarten programs serving eligible 4-year-olds. So let's go ahead and read that. A school district must attempt to maintain an average ratio in any pre-kindergarten program class of not less than 1 certified teacher or teacher's aide for each 11 students. So, what does that mean? Well, we know what is required. It definitely says the attempt to maintain an 11-to-1 ratio. So what does attempt mean? Well, the definition for attempt is to make an effort to do, accomplish, or solve something. So it implies that the attempt is ongoing until whatever's supposed to be solved or accomplished is achieved. So in this instant, the attempt word would serve to help a district know that they are supposed to be doing continuous effort until that ratio of 11-to-1 is achieved. And then it uses the word maintain. That definition is to keep in an existing state, to preserve from failure or decline. So the idea here is that most of the time when you walked into the pre-K classroom, it would have an 11-to-1 ratio. And times that it would not have that would be few. So what are the benefits of having a lower ratio? Well, obviously, there's much more closer supervision of students. And there's more opportunity for one-to-one interaction with students. Each student's individual needs can have more attention paid to them. And there's just more assistance when children need it the most, which is usually during class routines and transitions. And there is an increased or enhanced ability to implement really good small group instruction and learning centers more effectively. And of course, there's always those child assessments, and a lower ratio can bring assistance with those child assessments. So there are a lot of benefits for a lower ratio. So let's try to get a little more, and I should have said there's an extra pair of hands and eyes in the room. So that is always needed and helpful when you're working with young children. So let's try to get a little more specific. This on your slide is a sample full day schedule that is found in the 2015 Texas Pre-K Guidelines. Actually, it's on page 16. So what would, if you had a teacher aide or a teacher assistant in with the classroom teacher, what would that teacher assistant be doing during all of this time? So let's look right at the beginning. Children are arriving and they're maybe moving to an independent activity. So while children are arriving, having an assistant in the room gives the teacher the ability to speak with a parent if needed. They can also be an extra set of hands with a child who's having a rough time separating from their families. What about opening? There's a opening, there's circle time, there's a read aloud time in this schedule. And during those times, usually the children are all together. It's what another word for that is large group time. And there are several things a teacher assistant can do during a large group activity. They could sit with the students. They could help the students pay better attention. They could also, if not needed to sit with the students, they could be helping prep the classroom for the next activity so that there isn't so much lag time between activities. And then one of the other biggest part of the days here is the center time. And at this time, at Learning Center time, there are activities that are going on all over the room, and the children are choosing which activity to participate in at 7 learning centers is what we aimed for. So often the teacher during Learning Center time, they could do small group instruction if there was a teacher aide available. The teacher aide then could take the role of interacting with the students and extending their learning while they are doing the theme-related intentional activities in the learning centers. So as you can see, I didn't go through every possible part of this day, but there is plenty for a teacher assistant to do. Even at snack time, when the kids are all eating, an extra set of hands and eyes are really needed. Remember, they don't open their little milk cartons very well. They always need help opening the little pieces of cheese or crackers. And having 2 adults during that time gives more opportunity for enhancing language. And what about outdoor time? Again, having an extra pair of hands and eyes during this time is priceless. Keeping the students safe is much easier with 2 adults. So hopefully it is clear that a teacher with the assistance of a well-trained teacher aide creates a much higher quality classroom experience for the young student. Now, I will say that having 2 adults in the classroom changes the dynamics of the environment. Young kiddos do not really understand hierarchy, so they often will look at the teacher and the teacher assistant as equals. And it is important that the teacher and the assistant reflect a unified voice and a sense of teamwork. But often teachers have not been trained in managing another behavior, another adult. And often this can cause some difficulties. So LEAs, we would recommend, should develop very clear guidelines regarding the roles of both the teacher and the teacher assistant, and be willing to give training and guidance to enable that relationship between those 2 individuals to be not only mutually supportive, but respectful. That is real teamwork. So let's look now at a frequently asked question about teacher to student ratio. This question says, what qualifications must a teacher aide meet? Great question. Let's look at the answer. The qualification for a teacher aide position is a local decision. There are certifications that teacher aides may apply for. And in order to apply, the teacher aide must first get the job at the school district, and then they would contact the school district they work for to get some application instructions. I've listed here what is required, or a link to what is required for an Educational Aid 1, Educational Aid 2, and Educational Aid 3 certification. So you might want to check those out. So let's say your district is meeting the 11-to-1 ratio. You've got that done. You can check off that box. That structural quality piece you have arrived at. Are there other ways in this component that you could even reach for higher quality? Remember, it is always our goal to have positive child outcomes, and using teacher assistants to lower the student to teacher ratio is a great move toward high quality and positive child outcomes. There are two kinds of quality that we're going to talk about here briefly. One is structural quality and one is process quality. And when both are there, you have high quality pre-kindergarten. And both sets of quality are important. When pre-kindergarten quality is defined by an easily identifiable and usually regulated characteristic of the program, like teacher to student ratio, that is what we call structural quality. So, if you, as an LEA, are maintaining a teacher to student ratio of 1 to 11, you might think, whoa, I can check off that box. We've met that requirement. We're done. Well, that's just one piece of high quality. It's a very important piece. However, when quality is defined by the students' day-to-day experiences, not only their activities, but their interaction with the teacher, their interaction with their peers, even their interaction with the materials in the classroom. That is what we call process quality. And it is taking quality to another level. So in our example of teacher to student ratio, process quality would look at how well the two adults in the room interact not only with each other, but with the students. Both are necessary parts of a high-quality pre-kindergarten program. Now, in most cases, structural quality precedes process quality. But when both are there, then you've got real high quality. The pre-kindergarten components that have become Texas's focus, those listed here on this slide, are considered structural quality. They are foundational to high quality. And they help us reach that target that we're aiming for. We want a bullseye. We want positive child outcomes. So for those of you listening that have already made sure that you are meeting the 11 to 1 ratio, how could you reach for even higher quality? Here are some items that you might consider. What kind of professional development will staff need to ensure that students get the full benefits of a reduced student to teacher ratio? In other words, how well is usually the teacher assistant being used? To what extent are they being utilized to get the full benefits of an 11 to 1 ratio? What roles could a teacher aide take that will lead more directly to positive child outcomes? So think about the slide that we went over on that full day schedule. Are the pre-kindergarten classrooms using those teacher assistants to their fullest maximum benefit? And how can an LEA assist in developing teamwork within the classroom between the teacher and the teacher assistant? How can that be done? And lastly, how could the addition of a teacher aide with a pre-kindergarten classroom improve the experience for English learners and, quite frankly, for all diverse learners? If that teacher assistant could speak a language other than Spanish, other than English, say, think of that. Think of the high quality that would be present there. So these questions might lead you to another step even in higher quality. And of course, that's what we want. But I don't want you to forget those little 3-year-olds. We've been talking about the requirements for programs serving 4-year-olds, but we don't want to forget about those little 3-year-olds. So it is best practice that pre-kindergarten programs serving eligible 3-year-old students also adhere to the high quality components referenced in statute and commissioner's rule. We don't want to leave them out. We want the 3-year-old program to be as the same level of quality as the 4-year-old program. And remember, your district's early education allotment can be spent on serving eligible 3-year-olds and in increasing the quality in your entire pre-kindergarten program. So let's look now at some resources and support that may assist you in complying with this particular regulation. Among the resources here, I've written in the Texas Pre-K guidelines, mainly for you to look at that full day schedule in there. They also have some content on effective practices for promoting school readiness that has a lot of information on interacting with students that I think you might find beneficial. And then we've listed the early childhood program self-assessment. These tools were created to be a program evaluation tool. And it's a way for you to grade, if you will, the quality of your pre-kindergarten program. And there are items listed there that are directly linked to teacher-to-student ratio. We've also created for you a high-quality checklist that is specific for teacher-to-student ratio. So this could be used to document your areas of strength or areas of proficiency and your opportunities to grow or areas where your proficiency is in progress. It contains items that are both in statute, in commissioner's rule, and also some best practices that might encourage you to go to an even higher level of quality. We are always here at the Early Childhood Education Division to support you in your efforts at building the quality of your pre-kindergarten program. On this slide, you can see our direct email support link and our website information. And do not hesitate ever to contact us when you need some guidance. We are here to help you. The last thing that I want to show you today is a quote, and I think you're going to like this one, especially the teacher assistants out there. Here it is. I'm a teacher assistant. What is your superpower? I've seen that recently on a coffee cup, and I just thought it was perfect for this webinar. Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you've learned a little more about this particular component and ways that your district or charter can improve its pre-kindergarten program. Thank you for joining us.